Hello, I'm Melinda Posner, a planner with Washington State Parks. This presentation will provide information about the process State Parks is going through to develop new land use plans for Alta Lake and Bridgeport State Parks, and tell you how you can provide input. We're trying out a new format to make it easier for people to participate on their own schedule and to provide a way for people from outside the area to give their input too. Please take 10 minutes to watch this video and then tell us what you think about the alternatives proposed for these parks. Your input will inform a recommendation that staff makes to the Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission next year. This presentation will provide an overview of the classification and management planning process, also known as CAMP, which is an agency-wide planning process to develop land use plans for all state parks. We're in the process of doing so for Alta Lake and Bridgeport State Parks. CAMP includes 4 stages, each requiring outreach and feedback with the public, tribes, and other interested parties. The end products guide future operation and development and priorities after commission adoption. They include a land use classification map, long-term boundary map, and written management plan. We're currently at stage 2 in the process. The purpose of this stage is to consider alternative approaches to the issues identified in stage 1 for each park. These approaches should encompass everyone's ideas that we heard and show the different way things can play out. We developed 2 maps for each park. The maps identify where higher and lower intensity land uses could occur. For example, the recreation land classification, colored in pink, is for high intensity recreation use serving large numbers of people. This is where most camping, swim areas, and group day use areas are located. The resource recreation land classification, colored in blue, is intended for medium or low intensity recreation uses so that you can limit impacts to natural, cultural, or other resources. This classification can include parking lots, picnic areas, vault toilets, and multi-purpose trails. Each alternative map typically includes lands to be considered in the long-term boundary. On the map, the intended land classifications for these areas are the same ones that we just talked about, recreation, resource rec, etc. And when they are within a long-term boundary, they're colored with the same color, but in a lighter shade. The long-term boundary is a planning tool used to take a big picture look at what lands, independent of ownership, will advance the conservation and recreation mission of a park. It also considers whether agency-owned property should be retained or considered surplus. The long-term boundary provides staff with the direction to work directly with property owners to consider potential land transactions. These could range from simple agreements to recreation or conservation easements, and sometimes to agency purchase of property. Here is a summary of the major issues at Alta Lake. It's a popular site for motorized boating and other water recreation. So boating education, public safety, and lake level management are all key issues here. Restoring shade and vegetation after the 2014 Carlton Complex fire is also an issue, along with developing more trails, more activities for kids, easier access from town, and continuing the positive relationship the park has with property owners. The next 2 slides will show 2 alternative land classifications and long-term boundary maps for Alta Lake. Alternative 1 envisions a future where the park offers more diversity in terms of recreation in addition to motorized boating. This would include multi-purpose trails that could serve hikers, equestrians, and bicyclists. This trail system could be expanded around the lake with an extension of the cliff trail to the top of Goat Mountain and even a trail connecting golf course neighborhoods with the park. It also includes a 4-season recreation component. Ice fishing, winter camping, and possibly Nordic trails around the golf course could be part of this alternative. The long-term boundary would be extended to include a recreation node in the south for camping, day use, trails, and other high-intensity recreation. This is identified on the map as LTB 5. The long-term boundary would also be extended to the east. This is LTB 1 and classified as resource recreation. This designation would protect the viewshed and the wildlife corridor from more intense development and allow the multi-purpose trail. This map also includes expanding the long-term boundary to include the wetland in the northwest area of the park. This is LTB4, and this would be classifying it as natural, which would limit public access. This alternative considers a day in the future when there could be too many motorized boats on the lake, and through assessment of water quality, lakeshore erosion, and public safety, could lead to future limits on motorized boating. The emphasis of Alternative 2 is to continue the existing water-based recreation focus that currently makes Alta Lake so popular. Where possible, camping, parking, and boating facilities would be expanding within the current park boundary, in addition to considering the development of cabins. Enhancing the swim area with docks, picnic, and cabana areas, and seeking out motorized boating concessions and events are all also key features. This alternative would extend the long-term boundary to the east as in Alternative 1, here again as LTB1, but in this case it would classify it as natural, limiting the trail development that we described in Alternative 1. This alternative could include getting a study done to understand more about the lake level fluctuation. Developing a resilient interpretive trail from the boat launch to the camping and day use areas is a key objective of both alternatives. Both alternatives would also protect a natural drainage area near the middle of the park, LC4, can support a dog swim park, upgraded playgrounds and other facilities, and would continue restoration of fire-damaged areas. Moving on to Bridgeport. State Parks manages most of the currently developed portion of Bridgeport State Park on behalf of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. A new 25-year lease was finalized in 2016, which at that time committed State Parks to renewing the Lake Woods Golf Course with possible expansion, keeping the park open year-round, expanding park facilities to possibly include cabins, and developing easier access to the day-use beach. You'll see in the alternative approaches that all options will be consistent with the agreement. However, with closure of the Lake Woods Golf Course last year, planning what will take its place is a key issue to consider. Alternative 1, medium intensity recreation, looks to securing a future concession or other partnership to replace the Lake Woods Golf Course and developing other recreation uses to a higher level than the current developed area of the park. This alternative would expand the existing trails from the U.S. Army Corps property through the park and make a more comprehensive system of short and longer trail distances, potentially with complementary recreation areas to support the different types of trail users. A bicycle track could be one of these features. This alternative would expand camping, including more camping, group camping and day use areas, more and larger RV sites, and also consider cabin development. And both alternatives would also consider the other things we heard from the public, including bringing more shade, spray parks, and other kid-friendly opportunities. Alternative 2 differs from Alternative 1 with less acreage in high-intensity recreation and adds the natural area classification. It classifies a good portion of the undeveloped northwestern part of the park, as well as the haystack rock formations, as natural, which would limit public access and protect the shrub steppe landscape. This alternative keeps new recreation facility development to the current footprint primarily, but would develop a trail to the northeast near the current group campsite, but not develop a system to the extent described in Alternative 1. Now it's your turn. Tell us what you think. Are you more supportive of Alternatives 1 or 2 for Alta Lake and for Bridgeport State Park? What particular features are you most interested in? What other reactions do you have, and are there other things we haven't considered? Based on your feedback, we will develop a recommendation and propose it to the Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission in the first half of 2020. Thank you for taking the time to participate.